Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Sahana bhavatu, Sahana bhunaktu, Saha viryankaravavahai, Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sri Gita Dhyanam. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Puranamunina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshiniം Bhagavatim Ashtadashaധ്യായിनीം Amba Tvamanusandhadhami Bhagavad-gīte Bhavatvishini Namostute Vyasa Vishala-buddhe Pullara-vindayata-patra Nitra Yena Tvaya Bharata-dailya-purnaha Prajvalido Jnanamaya-pradeepaha Prapanna-parijataya Putra-vetrika-parnaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gītāmrita-duhe namaha Sarvopanishado gavu Dugdha Gopala-nandanaha Partho Vatsasudhir-bhokta Dugdham Gītāmritam mahat Vasudevasutam devam Kamsa-chanūramardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Bhishma-dronatata Jayadratha-jala Gandhara-neelotpala Shalya-grāhavati kripena-vahani Karnena-velakula Ashwatthamā-vikarna-ghora-makara Duryodhana-vardhini Sotirna khalu Pandavairananadi Kaivartaka-keshavaha Parashadya-vachah sarojam-amalam Gītārtha-gandhotkatam Nānākhyanaka-kesaram harikatha sambodhana-bodhitam Loke sajjana-shatparairaharaha Pepīyamanam buddha Bhūyāt bharata-pankajam Kalimala pradvamsina shreyase Mūkam karoti vācālam Pangum langhayati girim Yatkripatamaham vande Paramananda-madhavam Yam Brahma Varunindra Rudra Marutaha Sunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangha-pada-kramopanishade Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavastita-tadgatina manasa Pashyanti Yam Yogino Yasyantam na vidusura-suragana Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai namaha.
Hari Om. So, welcome to this beautiful Bangalore weather, right? It's unbelievably nice. Slight chill in the air and really, really nice weather. It's amazing, yeah. So, Hari Om, we'll get started. So, Bhagavan has explained the culmination of the spiritual journey. See, one who has attained perfection, yatha prapto siddhim, how such a person enters the Supreme Brahman. Vishade tad anantaram. Vishade tad anantaram. So one who has attained perfection enters how that person enters the Supreme Brahman. See, we saw the journey to becoming a perfect person is by performance of one's duty, swadharma. That consistent performance of duty leads to perfection. But perfection is not the culmination of this spiritual journey. The journey from perfection, entering into Bhagavan, entering into the Supreme Brahman, is what we learned in the last satsang. Bhagavan covered and we learned in the last satsang. So what he said was developing, espousing and embracing 12 qualities. He had listed out 12 qualities. I will not go into each of those qualities now because we should continue ahead. But those 12 qualities make a person fit for the state of Brahman. Brahma bhuyaya kalpate. So those 12 qualities are essential. And these 12 qualities help the searcher ensure that one does not slip backwards. And there is continuous progress towards the ultimate goal. So now I just use the word searcher. Normally we talk about the seeker, but this time I use the word searcher, right? We normally seek something that we do not possess. And we search for something that we already have, that we already possess. For example, one seeks the keys to a fancy car forever. Okay, I'm relating to it because I did that as a youngster. I wanted to have this fancy car all my life, right? In fact, when in my student days, my mother would say, "What are you doing?" She would be very worried about. I was this playful prankster kind of a guy, Whereas my brother was a very studious, systematic, disciplined student. And my mother would very worry about me and say, "What would you achieve?" She keeps over a period of time, continuously keep telling me about what will you do, what will happen, what will you achieve. And one day I remember I lost my, cool, and I told her, at the worst case, I'll become a driver of a Mercedes-Benz owner and I'll drive the car. That was my life ambition. After that, my life ambition became joining the Air Force. So my entire everything was around, getting that key, not own the car, by the way. All I wanted to do was drive the car. That's all I wanted to do. So you seek that, and then when you get the keys, sometimes you go around searching because you misplaced it, right? So you normally search for what you already have, what you already possess, but you seek something that you do not possess, that you do not have. A spiritual seeker is one who has not yet unveiled the divinity within, one who is still seeking that ultimate goal. And once that ultimate goal of that knowledge that Bhagavan spoke about, right? Nishtha jnanasya ya para, that supreme knowledge, once that is attained, then this perfectionist, because one who has that knowledge is a perfectionist. That perfectionist, having known the divinity within, having related to the Supreme Self, that person is now searching to enter the Supreme. So this is the difference in terms of the journey, in terms of climbing the ladder of spiritual milestones. And we saw that what we learned in the last satsang, the first milestone for a person with the 12 qualities, the perfectionist who has the 12 qualities, because the 12 qualities make sure that the perfectionist does not slip and go backwards. So for a perfectionist with the 12 qualities, the first milestone in the journey from a perfectionist to entering the Brahman is reaching a serene mind, prasannatma. That prasannatma is neither in grief nor in ecstasy. Na shochati, na kankshati. Meaning, the ups and downs of samsara, they do not cause any upheaval. There is zero mental disturbance for this person. Then this searcher considers all the beings, everything in the universe the same. Samas sarveshu bhuteshu. See, when one sees the divine presence in everything and one experiences the divinity everywhere, or when one sees the divine presence everywhere and experiences divinity in everything, whichever way you want to put it, right? Then everything becomes the same for this person, samaha. Because why? Because that divinity that one has known after being a perfectionist, that divinity is there everywhere. So it's the same divinity. That is why everything becomes the same. Such a person, mad bhaktim labate param, attains supreme devotion to me. So after this step, that devotion, see, till now also there is devotion. One thing about bhakti is that it starts from the beginning till the end. To convert the very first step in the spiritual journey, converting karma into karma yoga, that also requires bhakti. Because how do you envision the supreme in your karmas, in your day-to-day karmas? It is only with bhakti that one can devote whatever we do to karma, even if it is scolding a child. I'm going to talk about it. That was the question Radhika asked last time, right? How do I scold a child and devote that action to the supreme, even if that may be it, right? So you start with bhakti, and this bhakti, mad bhaktim labate param, this bhakti is that supreme devotion that this person who sees all beings as the same, because divinity is all around, everywhere. That kind of a person, that person who has the prasannatma, that person who na shochati na kankshati, that kind of a person, that devotion is the aspect that Bhagavan is talking about, that comes after the supreme consummation of knowledge. Once the seeking stops, that kind of bhakti. And then through this devotion, bhaktya, with this devotion as the tool, through this devotion, comes to know me fully. So already has the supreme consummation of knowledge, and now with that devotion, supreme devotion, now comes to know me fully, even more completely. So one more step of knowledge, mam abhijanati, and yavan yaschasmi tattvataha, who and what I am in reality. And knowing me thus, tataha, in that manner, one enters that forthwith. Vishate tadanantaram. So this is the crowning development for a human being, in fact for all of creation. Development meaning the growth, the evolution that we all experience, the evolution of life that Darwin talked about. That evolution, as we keep growing and as we keep evolving, the supreme crowning development of this evolution process is this stage. This is that stage. Now, all of this seems to be a Herculean task, and it can discourage even the most accomplished of the sages, right? The seekers as well as the searchers. Not to mention an ordinary person. We ordinary people, of course, like I said the other day, while going about day-to-day duties, sometimes you don't even, the thought of Ishvara does not come into mind. You realize it much later, after that has elapsed, that time has elapsed. So ordinary people, so obviously this is, a Herculean task. So Bhagavan now assures the ordinary human being. We will go to the next verse, which is verse 56.
Sarva karmanyapi sada.
Sarva karmanyapi sada.
Kurvano madhyapashrayaha.
Kurvano madhyapashrayaha.
Madprasadat avapnoti.
Matprasadat avapnoti.
Shashvatam padamavyayam.
Shashvatam padamavyayam.
सर्वकर्माण्यपि सदा कुर्वाणो मद्व्यपाश्रयः मत्प्रसादात् अवाप्नोति शाश्वतं पदमव्ययम्.
Api, even though, sada, ever, kurvanaha, performing, sarva karmani, all actions. So even though performing all actions, which is what we are all doing all our time, we are performing action, some action or the other. For that person, the ordinary human being who is performing action all the time, even then, Bhagavan says, Vyapashraya, taking refuge, mad, in me, avapnoti, one attains, mat prasadat, by my grace, Shashvatam, the eternal, Abhyayam, indestructible, Padam, abode. So Bhagavan is saying, even though ever performing all actions, taking refuge in me, one attains by my grace the eternal, indestructible abode. So Bhagavan is talking about the people who are ever performing actions. Sarva karman yapi sada kurvanaha. Even though ever performing all actions. See, all actions, we have quick revision of what we have read, right? Karma include obligatory duties, occasion-based duties, as well as desire-prompted duties, or obligatory actions, occasion-based actions, desire-prompted actions, which are performed by an ordinary human being. So what are these? The Nitya Karma, which are the daily duties, which are required for robust living. Getting up, sleeping, brushing the teeth, worship, paying the bills, following rules, all of those. Naimittika karma, which are based on occasion, based on the role that one is playing, arising out of circumstances, right? For example, taking care of a friend who is unwell, going to the office and performing work that is given to us to perform, that kind of work. Kamya karma. So these two, Nitya karma, Naimittika karma, are called Niyatam karma, obligatory. We must do. These are, you can't escape from those duties. Kamya karma are desire prompted to fulfill our selfish goals. So these are not obligatory duties. So if you now take that example that Radhika asked, right? Radhika, you asked this question last time. How do I devote scolding my child to God, right? So let us take the activity of scolding a child under these heads. That will fall under these karma, right? So, Madhyapashrayaha. Madhyapashrayaha means what? Taking refuge in me. When we take refuge and do that activity, the guidance will come. For example, Nitya karma scolding a child. Okay, which means you are doing your daily duty. The child is also doing daily duty. But you are now scolding the child because your daily duty is to ensure good upbringing of the child as a parent. That is the daily duty. It's a Nitya karma. Okay. The child's daily duty, let us say, is to have a good night's sleep or study for that period of time, do the homework, brush the teeth, whatever it may be. Okay. The child is not doing, and you have to do your Nitya karma of telling the child, coaching the child, and even then if it not happens, scolding the child. Okay. So you do this with devotion to Bhagavan. That's fine. You can do. Now let us say Naimittika karma, duties that are based on circumstance. You as a parent have to look after the child. The child is not well, but the child is not taking medicine. With the fever of 101 degrees is going out and playing in the hot sun. Then you scold the child for that purpose, right? But if you devote it to Bhagavan, then the message that you will probably get is, yes, it's okay to scold, but soften up. The child pavam is unwell, so don't be harsh to the child. Soften up. But kamya karma, desire prompted. I want this from my child. Has nothing to do with the child. Okay? So for example, a senior student, you have to do engineering. You have to become a doctor. There's immense pressure on the child. Why? Because the parent wants some achievement out of the child. Tremendous pressure on the child for desire of the parent. So if you devote such an activity to Bhagavan, the message, the guidance that will come is, please do not scold the child. So in each of this, the point is this, that when we devote our action to Bhagavan, we get guidance through the Madhyapashraya attitude, taking refuge in it. Automatically we will do the right thing. When we perform actions and when we devote it to Bhagavan, the doership goes away. It's not I am doing. It is Bhagwan's work that I am doing. And if it is Bhagwan's work to chide the child, that's okay. Doership goes, righteousness comes. That is what happens. So, what does this ordinary human being do? The ordinary human being who is struggling to control the body, the speech, and the mind. That kind of ordinary human being. On a day-to-day basis, we struggle to control these. We can't control speech. Sometimes we speak harsh words. Don't control the body, we overindulge. Don't control the mind, it is floating all over the place. This happens. That kind of a person taking refuge in me, madhyapashraya, Bhagavan says, we do not assume doership. It's like, the karma is not renounced. The work is being done, but the sense of doership is renounced. In verse 49, we talked about how a perfectionist, while performing action, is in a state of actionlessness, naishkarmya, that kind of non-doership while performing. This is nothing but the state of complete, total self-surrender. Completely surrendering. We see people like that in our life, in our day-to-day life. They have, whatever they do, they surrender to Bhagavan. And that way, even the most active or the most inactive of people, they become more sattvic. Most active rajasic, most inactive tamasic. The sattvicness automatically comes. It is like a river that merges with the ocean. See, when a river merges with the ocean, in fact, if you go to a river point in a delta where the river is getting into the ocean, and you're able to go there and swim in the ocean, you will find the current of the river below the surface water of the ocean. The river continues to flow in the ocean, but it's the ocean, it's not the river. So the action of the river is continuing up to a point in time, of course. Everything has a limit, right? Even our life has a limit. So up to a point in time, the currents of the river are the currents of the river, but there is no river, it's the ocean. Doing your action, but not having the identity. That is madhyapashraya. Whatever takes place through this person and in this person, in and through, rather, the correct way is in and through. Whatever takes place is actually the doing of Bhagavan, the Supreme. And the fact that this kind of an action aligns with dharma and becomes swadharma or duty, that is a natural outcome. Automatically that outcome will happen. All we have to do is take refuge. So there is this supernatural series on Netflix, okay, which I enjoyed watching. It is called Manifest. And I believe that a major idea in this, it's overseas 4 seasons, and I think there may be one more season. So, the major idea, one of the major ideas, or the major idea, I believe is directly taken from this verse, or directly stemming from this verse. See, to give you a brief background, people take off in a plane. And before they take off in a plane, there is an announcement that the plane is overfull. See, it often happens, right? They say, especially in America, they say we are overbooked. So you please, whoever decides to let go of this flight, we'll give you $50 or $100 or so many coupons or whatever. Can you please take the next flight? So this kind of an announcement happens, and some people choose to not take that flight and take advantage of that offer. And there is one family, which is the central family of this series, in which half the family takes the flight, half the family chooses to stay back. Okay, some people stay back. Now, what happens is that family which has taken the first flight lands, for them this plane has crashed. The plane which the other passengers took never reached. But for the people who did not take that original flight, they reach, and for the others also they reach, but they reach 5 years later. So when the second plane lands, it has landed 5 years after the first plane has landed. The passengers in the second plane are in the same age, which means they are in the same state. For them, it is 4 hours or 5 hours or 6 hours. But for the others, it is 5 years. So the others who went earlier are 5 years older. These days are 5 years younger. So this is the context in which this manifest kind of continues. Okay. And this idea that I talked about, the major idea, which is completely based on this verse, is that God has resurrected these passengers and given them callings so that they can help people. So the plane vanished, like the Malaysian airline plane vanished, right? And then has come into the real world after 5 years. So imagine that Malaysian airline, whoever was in that plane comes today, we all see them after I don't know how many other years that plane, I don't know exactly how many years that plane crashed, but they feel it was only 3 years ago. So God has resurrected them. Okay. And there are also elements, these passengers, there are divinity in, for example, they experience divine consciousness. So these callings are nothing but callings from above. So they experience divine consciousness, and there is also an element of sapphire in their body. Sapphire, which is said to be a divine material that is found in the body of this disappeared person who then returned. Meaning they were touched by God. So they were touched by God, they experienced divine consciousness, and they get callings based on which they conduct action. So see, look at the context, right? It's beautiful. So you have come back, which means you have been resurrected. You have had the touch of God because there is glow in you, and you experience divine callings, and you act based on these callings. Now these people, the series, it shows beautifully, by the way, they take complete refuge in these callings. 200%, not 99%. When the calling comes, they take complete refuge in the callings. That is what this verse says. This verse says, take complete refuge in me. That is what they do in the callings. The Madvyapashraya, that part. And taking complete refuge in the callings, they do their action. And at the end of the completion of the work that has been assigned to them by the calling, they experience intense peace. Tremendous amount of peace. So it's quite a nice thing, okay? Another interpretation of Madvyapashraya, it means under the protection of the Supreme Lord. A pure devotee under the direction and protection. So you act as per Bhagwan's direction, Bhagwan protects you, right? Under the direction of the Supreme Lord. That is how they perform their actions. Submitting oneself completely as a mere instrument. I am just nothing but an instrument to carry out your duty, Bhagwan. That is the attitude. And they carry out his work, Bhagwan's work. And the devotee in this kind of a situation is not acting. The work is Bhagwan. You are only a tool. Can we say that a spanner is acting? No, I am the one who is twisting the nut. The spanner is not twisting the nut. Similarly, I am that instrument, Bhagwan's action, and I am not doing anything. And this person does not reap the benefit of that action also, of that karma, which are taking place through the instrumentality of this person. Such a person, Bhagwan says, avapnoti, attains by the grace of the Supreme, Mat Prasada, then also attains by my grace, Mat Prasada. Once again, Bhagwan uses the word Mat Prasada. Eternal, indestructible abode. Shashvatam Padam Abhyayam. So Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa has said, and I quote, to be ever engaged in karma is not the goal of life. See, not the goal of life. It is only a means to attain the state of the Supreme. Do not mistake the means for the end. The road to a town is not itself the town, unquote. Therefore, so given this, therefore, Bhagwan now gives an order. See, we had said in the beginning of this chapter, right, that Sri Krishna, Bhagwan Sri Krishna gives finishing touches as an artist and makes concluding statements as a scientist. Now he gives a concluding statement, and that concluding statement is an order for humanity to follow. Let us see what it is.
Chetasa sarva karmani
Chetasa sarva karmani
Mayi sanyasya matparaha
Mayi sanyasya matparaha
Buddhi yogamupashritya
Buddhi yogamupashritya
Majchittas satatam bhava
Majchittas satatam bhava.
चेतसा सर्वकर्माणि मयि सन्न्यस्य मत्परः बुद्धियोगमुपाश्रित्य मच्चित्तः सततं भव.
So Bhagavan gives an order to humanity, okay, to his creation. It is our choice whether we follow it or not. But ultimately, everyone will one day or the other follow. As part of the evolution, the time comes when it makes sense. Willingly follow, right? So what is Bhagavan saying? Chetasa, mentally, with your mind. Sannyaasa, renouncing. Sarva karmani, all actions. Mai, in me. Matparaha, having me as the goal. Upashritya, resorting to. Buddhi yogam, buddhi yoga. We have read buddhi yoga earlier in chapter 2. One kind of a summary in retrospect. After finishing buddhi yogam, Bhagavan touches again. He touched it in prospect also in the beginning. Buddhi yogam, upashritya buddhi yogam, resorting to buddhi yoga. Satatam, always. Bhava, be. Bhava is like bhava, be that way. With what way? Machchitta, with the mind fixed on me. Mentally renouncing, surrendering all actions in me, having me as the goal, resorting to buddhi yoga, always be with the mind fixed on me. It is like those guys who follow the callings. This is exactly how they follow the callings. When one acts mentally renouncing all actions, surrendering all actions in Bhagavan. So, Chetasa Sarva Karmani Mai Sannyaasya. Taking all actions, surrendering to him. That mentality is that of a servant. It is not that of a master. So you develop a mentality of a servant. Mentality is of service. Whatever you do becomes a service. See, it's like the government official, right? The power of the government comes to the person who is an office bearer. And that person who discharges duty of the office, right? Faithfully, okay, discharging duty faithfully with an attitude of service as an instrument of that office, and knowing fully well that the power held belongs to the office and not to the individual. When a government official performs in this manner, the work, okay, the duty, discharges it as duty, faithfully does it, has an attitude of service, making sure that I'm the instrument of the chair, and the power that comes is the power of the chair, the office, not my power. How much do we see that in around us, in government offices? But there are people, by the way, who do that. Huh? Today I went to collect my passport. Sorry, not collect. Passport gets delivered. I went to do police verification. So, the system is beautiful now. A lot of people are doing work in this manner. So first of all, the passport came before the police verification. Normally in the olden days, I remember passport used to come, police verification was a task, and after that passport will come after a long time. I went day before yesterday for the passport application. Yesterday the passport was delivered to me, and today I had police verification. And everything was, I felt that it was done in this manner with these five. This kind of an attitude while performing work, this kind of a person, the government official who does this, is said to be endowed with buddhi yoga. See, karma is plain karma, any action. Karma yoga is devoting that action to Bhagavan. Buddhi yoga is having the attitude of receiving whatever comes as prasada. That intellectual action, knowing fully well what you are doing. Bhagavan uses the term interchangeably, karma yoga and buddhi yoga. This is buddhi yoga. And this is the truth of that person and of that position. Any other thought is misconception. So if any government official thinks the power belongs to me, misconception. The truth is this. Similarly, when the Jivatman comes to know, like this government official knows that this is my duty, the power belongs to the chair. Similarly, the Jivatman comes to know the truth about oneself and one's relationship with Paramatma. That knowledge comes into this person. And then with this knowledge, performs work, all actions. And these actions are then performed with devotion, dedicating them to the Supreme, and that is called Buddhi Yoga. Buddhi is resorting to Buddhi Yoga. Buddhi Yogam Upashyatya. Resorting to Buddhi Yoga. That's what Bhagavan means when he says Buddhi Yogam Upashyatya. The aspirant who is endowed with Buddhi Yoga, he always carries out the commandments earnestly. Commandments meaning what Bhagavan has instructed. Like I said, this verse is an instruction. Bhagavan has come with instructions and guidance throughout the Bhagavad Gita. Those guidance and those instructions, especially of this verse, are carried out earnestly by this person. Very sincerely, naturally and sincerely follows the teachings and the guidance of Bhagavan. With the attitude that one belongs to Bhagavan. All the happenings in the universe belong to him, belong to the Lord. And his purpose and his plan for this universe do not get disrupted if one person, one Jivatman, me, do not follow it. That is the attitude with which this person works. And when this person has this kind of an attitude, the only concern of this person, only concern of this Jivatman is to attain the Supreme, is to search and get into the Supreme. Let's not get into the debate of merge with the Supreme. All are valid, by the way. Falling into the feet of the Supreme is equally good as merging with the Supreme, is equally good as being the servant of the Supreme. Like we talked about that Hanuman verse the other day. So the goal of this person, Matparaha, is, or the only goal. See, Matparaha is also interpreted as the supreme goal. This is the only goal. Supreme, not supreme, anything. This is the only goal. The only goal of this Jivatman is to attain the Paramatman, the abode of the Paramatman. Merge with the Paramatman, become one, whatever it may be. With that end, ever in view, this person always has the mind fixed in Bhagavan. Mat chitta satatam bhava. The goal is to attain Bhagavan. Mind is ever fixed in Bhagavan. See, we all say, right? As we think, so we become. As we think, so shall we become. Correct? So a devotee who performs all activities dedicated to the goal of Krishna consciousness, attaining that Krishna consciousness, automatically comes to live as Krishna and thereby experiences the Supreme Self. So ordinary people like us, it is common for us to have the mind somewhere and the heart somewhere else. The buddhi is somewhere else and the bhakti is somewhere else. It is very common for us to have that. Bhagavan is asking for all faculties to be tuned in, focused on him. Mat chitta mat paraha. Everything. Single pointed devotion. And when we worship in him in this manner, we have seen this earlier also in chapter 2, right? There are two aspects that are required for devotion. Love and respect. Love is a feeling of the heart. And it comes through upasana. And respect is the feeling of the brain. And it comes through jnana. The heart tuned to the Lord with love. The brain tuned to the heart, Lord with respect. So imagine a parent or an elder, someone you respect a lot, right? Your heart is tuned to that person with love. The brain is tuned to that person with respect. That is called mat chitta and mat para. And ultimately, the heart being tuned to the God, Bhagavan, with love, brain being tuned to Bhagavan with respect, is nothing but bhakti or devotion. Mat chitta and mat para coming together. And what is the outcome of living in this manner? With devotion. And conversely, what is the outcome of living in an egoistic manner? With that sense of I. That Bhagavan covers in the next verse.
Machchitta sarva durgani.
Machchitta sarva durgani.
Mad prasadat tarishyasi.
Mat prasadat tarishyasi.
Atha chetvam ahankaran.
Atha chetvam ahankarat.
न श्रोष्यसि विनङ्क्ष्यसि
न श्रोष्यसि विनङ्क्ष्यसि
मच्चित्तः सर्वदुर्गाणि मत्प्रसादात् तरिष्यसि अत चेत्त्वमहङ्कारान् न श्रोष्यसि विनङ्क्ष्यसि
Machchittaha, with your mind fixed on me. Tarishyasi, you shall overcome. Sarva Durgani, all obstacles. Mat Prasadat, by my grace. Again Bhagavan says, Mat Prasadat, by my grace. This grace is a beautiful word. Atha, however, Chet, if Ahankarat, from egoism, Tvam, you, Na, do not, Shrosyasi, pay heed, then Vinangshasi, you will face destruction. So Bhagavan is saying, with your mind fixed on me, you shall overcome all obstacles. See, Durga means fort. Lot of, if you go to Maharashtra and all, lot of fort will be named some Durga or the other, right? Durga means, or even North Karnataka and all that, right? Durga means fort. Fort is something that is a obstacle for forces to overcome. So Sarva Durgani, you shall overcome all obstacles by my grace. However, if from egoism you do not pay heed, you will face destruction. Mat chitta. This is a beautiful verse. We must understand this in the right manner. It's extremely important. So please, listen and also go back and revise, because this is one of the most misinterpreted and misquoted. People who want to gain upper hand, they quote this verse in a wrong way. So you must understand this verse very well. Mat chitta, the mind in me, totally filled with that object of devotion, love and respect. Totally filled with love and respect. And in that object of devotion, the devotee, by the thought, mentally, chetasa, renounces all actions. So all activities are only expressions of the divine consciousness. Everything is an expression of the divine consciousness. And keeping this divine consciousness as one's goal, that, the matpara, right? That goal, one goal. And constantly focusing on mind on this, that ensures that the ego is sublimated. If we don't do that, the ego is constantly there. But completely taking refuge, the ego is sublimated. Human beings make mistakes only when the ego directs wrongly through impulses and wrong directions. Mistakes happen because of that. And constant remembrance of the Lord, it ensures that Sarva Durgani, all obstacles, are tarishyasi, overcome by His grace, Mat Prasadat. So this aspect of wrong direction and wrong guidance resulting in mistakes, that goes away through this grace of Bhagavan's. See, life's obstacles are all imaginary. There is no real obstacle out there. That is why people make, when you say in the Kargil war, you climb that scale. If you see that mountain, if you ever go to Kargil and you are lucky enough to get there to see that face, it's impossible to climb. How did they climb and get there? Unbelievable, right? So somehow, some energy, something comes and makes you do it. It's supreme, entirely. So like that same Virat Kohli, who got some supreme power to score those runs in that first match, that was missing in that semi-final match. It didn't have a disaster. So the person is the same, the player is the same, the batsman is the same, the potential is the same, capability is the same, everything is the same. Opponents are very similar, right? At least if you see the delta between in terms of performance, it's not as if the England players, tomorrow if India plays England, they'll probably beat them. That supreme power, that some magical thing that came and made that person perform that way, right? So these life's obstacles are all imaginary. They are either false fears which are inside you, or deceitful anxieties which are inside you, or they are imaginary incapabilities or incapacitations that are caused by external forces. So they are either internal or external. Both are there. They are either, but both are in our mind. Even external are in our mind. And Mat Prasadat, or His grace, is nothing but the serene calmness in the mind that removes these debilitating imaginations, the limitations. That calm mind that is able to overcome these obstacles. When you have that calm mind, you're able to play those winning shots. When you don't have that calm mind, the same individual is not able to play those winning shots. That is Mat Prasada. And this calm that, comes from this nature of that human being is a result that comes from that mental nature. What mental nature? Tuned to the higher, tuned to the supreme, tuned to the infinite, and peacefully settled in the contemplation of the supreme. Which means what? Performing action, thinking about the supreme. That is contemplation of supreme. See, grace is something which comes after we given our best. We have done our best. Plus there is that bonus which comes. That bonus is grace. So when I was a student, sometimes I used to get grace marks. When I was in the army, there were some people who used to get grace. You have to complete, there is satisfactory timing, good timing, and excellent timing. When you're short by, say, 5 seconds, you just get a grace and you say, chalo, theek hai. You are in satisfactory, but by grace marks, grace timing, you are good. Or you're actually in good, by grace timing of the instructor, you are in excellent. Similarly, I as a student in math especially, sometimes some topics of math you get well, some topics of math you are a disaster. So where you are a disaster, you are failed by a few marks and the teacher will give you grace marks to pass. Or you not got 90% or distinction, the teacher will give you 2 marks, 3 marks, and the teacher has to search the paper. Huh? You have to search, okay, here I can give quarter mark, here I can give half mark. So I know this and I relate. This was related to my Guruji and I sympathize because I was in the same position, getting that grace marks. So this giving this grace mark to a student is the teacher's job. And when does the teacher do it? When the student is sincere, when the student is a good student. And when the student is aligned, when the student is devoted to the teacher. Normally, the student who is a rebel student will not get grace marks. It is only the devoted student who gets grace marks. So this is grace, that which comes after we have given our 100%. And when does that happen? That happens only when you surrender your ego. If you think you are bigger than your teacher, you will never get grace. You have to surrender your ego to the teacher. And if that is not done, Bhagavan says, one faces destruction. This is now another critical portion of this verse. Okay. So if due to ego, ahankaran or ahankarat, if due to ego, you do not pay heed, tvam na shrosyasi, you will face destruction, vinankshasi. So Bhagavan is not giving any threat here. Okay. It is perceived sometimes as Bhagavan, oh, okay, so Bhagavan is giving you a warning or a threat. No, this is not a warning or a threat. This is not any kind of tyrannical law of religion that you bloody well obey, otherwise you'll get punished. No. Honest and true spirituality, there is no punishment, no reward for doing and punishment for not doing. Everything is within us. Like we said earlier, what is sin? Sin is the disturbance in our own mind because of the Shadripu, because of the impurities in our own mind. Our mind has impurity, because of which our mind is disturbed. That is called sin. And when you carry forward the sin to your next life, yes, it is that sin in the next life. It is not something that someone throws at you, like Bhagavan will throw at you. No, absolutely not. And here, Bhagavan is not warning. He is not giving a threat. There is no tyranny here. As much as we follow science, the laws of science, the laws of physics, to achieve materialistic goals, we should follow the laws of life to achieve spiritual goals. So when Bhagavan uses the word destruction, vinankshasi, it is nothing but non-attainment of this ultimate human goal or human spiritual goal of peaceful mind, that calm, serene mind. Non-attainment of that calm, serene mind is destruction. Because a disturbed mind is a destroyed mind. And in spiritual terms, if you have a destroyed mind, that's destruction, right? That's like putting nuclear bomb in a city is destroyed when a nuclear bomb is exploded in that city. Similarly, a disturbed mind is spiritually destroyed. That is Renunciation. The eternal peace and happiness is not there. Not following this law of sublimation of ego at the altar of the Supreme, not following that will result in the same ego. By the way, that same ego causes the mind to experience heights of ecstasy, depths of depression. And this fluctuation or this pendulum swinging between heights of ecstasy and depths of depression creates lack of peace within. And that lack of peace is destruction. So both the subjective and the objective aspects, both the internal and the external aspects of our own existence. See, obstacles to smooth living are there both internally and externally. And human beings have paid more attention to solving external obstacles in terms of material also again, not external obstacles in terms of internal peace. Ultimately, when you solve external obstacles in terms of internal peace, you come internal only. But in terms of material existence, see, wherever there is dry land, we have ensured copious supply of water. Wherever there is extreme heat, unlike Bangalore, we have ensured air conditioning. Wherever there is extreme cold, we have ensured warmth, air conditioning again, right? Wherever Earth is going for a toss, habitation on Earth is getting threatened day by day by day. Ozone layer is depleting, oceans are rising. Mankind says, let's start exploring space for human habitation. And all these activities are done by following laws of science. That is how it happens. But gaining of happiness does not lie in subjugation of nature, subjugation of external world. Nature, I don't mean the self nature, I'm talking about the creation outside us, that nature, not the guna. Happiness gaining comes from subjugation of one's ego, that sense of individuality. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, and I quote, if the egoistic feeling of I am the doer takes possession of your heart, that would alienate you from Ishvara. The Lord remains hidden in that heart which is tainted with egoism, unquote. So what is the result of ego-driven resolves? Especially those which go against performance of duty. That Bhagavan covers in the next verse.
Yadahankaramashritya
Yadahankaramashritya
na yotsya iti manyase
na yotsya iti manyase
mityaisha vyavasayaste
mityaisha vyavasayaste
prakritistvam niyuksyati
prakritistvam niyuksyati
Yadahankaramashritya na yotsya iti manyase mityaisha vyavasayaste prakritistvam niyuksyati.
Yad, if ashritya, taking shelter in ahankaram, egoism. Earlier he has said take refuge in me. Here taking shelter in ahankaram, egoism. Manyase, you think. Na yotsya, I will not fight. Iti, this. Vyavasayaha, resolve of. Te, yours. This resolve of yours. Mityaisha is in vain. Mitya. Prakritihi, nature. Niyokshyati, will compel. Tvam, you. So Bhagavan is saying, if taking shelter in egoism, you think I will not fight, this resolve of yours is in vain. Nature will compel you. See, Bhagavan is using the word na yotsya, I will not fight. This is directly at Arjuna. Because Arjuna thrown up everything, I will not fight. Right? So it is directly talking to Arjuna. But we will see, through Arjuna it talks to us. On one's hand, in normally, unconsciously, in deep sleep, okay? If there is a mosquito biting, even in deep sleep, we attack that mosquito. This is how nature works. There is no way we can, we can stop that. Nature drags us and impels us into action. During wakefulness, I may say, no, yaar, I want to practice ahimsa, I'll spare that mosquito. But when you're in deep sleep, you hit it. But even during nature, this is how nature works. So any decision that is contrary to nature, that will only result in conflict with one's own personality. That is the disturbance within. That is the destruction within. See, Arjuna may avoid war at that moment, but his own nature will not allow him to come to terms with the tyranny of the Kauravas. And he will be compelled to fight against it. Shankaracharya has said, this is what Bhagavan has conveyed in this verse, by the way. But Shankaracharya has said, Arjunam nimitti kritya. Taking Arjuna as a medium, Bhagavan is telling us all. And what is he telling us all? We will see in the next verse.
Svabhavajena kaunteya
Svabhavajena kaunteya
Nibaddhasvena karmana
Nibaddhasvena karmana
Kartum nichasi mohat
Kartum nichasi mohat
Karishyasya vashopi tat
Karishyasya vashopi tat
Svabhavajena kaunteya Nibaddhasvena karmana Kartum nichasi mohat Karishyasya vashopi tat
Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, Nibaddha, bound by, Svena, your own, Karmana, actions, Swabhavajena, born of your nature. Bhagavan has taught us this in detail before. Actions that are born out of our own nature. Yan or Yat, that which, Ichhasi, you wish, Na, not, Kartum, to do, Mohat, through delusion. Api, even, Tat, that, Karishyaha, you shall do, Avashaha, helplessly. So Bhagavan is saying, O son of Kunti, bound by your own actions, your own duties, born out of your own nature, that which you wish not to do by your own free will through delusion, even that you shall do helplessly. See, all our past karma have fructified into our current nature or swabhava or guna. Past actions have caused current swabhava. And now the current nature will cause the current karma and the future karma. So, past action, current nature, karma. Karma, swabhava, karma. So, karma, swabhava, karma. That is the cycle. This is the meaning when Bhagavan says, Swabhava jena nibaddha svena karmana. That is the meaning of this. The cycle of karma and swabhava. Using Arjuna as the medium, Sri Krishna tells us that actions that we do are propelled by our own nature and then shape our nature again. Now, Arjuna is essentially Rajoguna. We all know that, we know Mahabharata well, right? And because he is Rajoguna, he must fight. He cannot all of a sudden, sitting in this battlefield, with that same Rajas, he ordered Krishna to go to the middle of the battlefield. Now suddenly he cannot become Sattva and say, oh, let me meditate. Neither can he suddenly become Tamasic and say, I'm going to sleep. He cannot do that. Though he got into this situation of I will not fight through what? Through delusion. And it's a decision, by the way. He's making a choice through will. He tells Bhagavan, I'm not going to fight. He will be compelled. That's what Bhagavan says. Even though you have done this, Arjuna, you will be compelled by your own nature. You will be helpless. Karishyasya vashaha. This is the irrevocable law of life. It cannot change. This is how it will be. We will all face this. Therefore, when called upon by duty, one better roll up one's sleeves and act. There is no choice. Sri Krishna now categorically states that God's will is the primary force in all of creation. That is in the next verse.
ईश्वरः सर्वभूतानां
Ishvara sarvabhutanam
हृद्देशेऽर्जुन तिष्ठति
hritteshirjuna tishtati
भ्रामयन् सर्वभूतानि
Ramayan sarvabhutani
यन्त्रारूढानि मायया
yantrarudhani mayaya.
ईश्वरः सर्वभूतानां हृद्देशेऽर्जुन तिष्ठति भ्रामयन् सर्वभूतानि यन्त्रारूढानि मायया
Ishvaraha, the Lord, tishtati, dwells, hriddeshe, in the hearts, sarvabhutanam, of all beings, O Arjuna. Brahmayan is spinning. Sarvabhutani, all beings. Yantra rudhani, as if mounted on a wheel. Mayaya, by his power. The Lord dwells in the hearts of all. The Lord is saying this, by the way. Bhagavan himself is telling. Sri Krishna, who is standing there, the avatara, is talking about the Supreme Bhagavan. The Lord, and Sri Krishna says, the Lord dwells in the heart of all beings, O Arjuna, spinning all beings as if mounted on a wheel by his power. See, sharing location on maps is a widely practiced means to find and reach another person nowadays. So Bhagavan is sharing his location for us to find and reach him. Hriddeshe tishtati, dwells in the hearts of all beings, Sarva Bhutanam. That is his location, the Ishvara. And abiding in all hearts, what does this Ishvara do? Brahmayan Sarva Bhutani, spins all beings, Yantra Rudani, as if they are mounted on a wheel, Chakra. The supreme function, Yantra also means machine, so a machine wheel, okay? The supreme functioning through the total bodies as the cause of all actions is this Ishvara. See, if we see Mahabharata, the war, right? So Sri Krishna is there. Bhagavan Sri Krishna, Bhagavan, right? The Lord. He causes all the work to take place in the entire war systematically. Arjuna is the Jivatman. He represents the Jivatman. And he is mounted on this chariot, which is the body. So the body, the physical being, the Jivatman, the soul, and Sri Krishna, the Paramatma, who makes everything happen. The chariot or the body is unconscious of its movements. By itself, it doesn't know, but it is going around the battlefield, roaming around the entire battlefield. Like this body, unconscious of its movements, roams around in this samsara, in this entire world. The Jivatman, conscious of the action, is performing actions. Like Arjuna, conscious of the war, is fighting the war. And this Paramatman is making things happen. So the Jivatman is revolving, the chariot is revolving, and this Paramatman sitting there is causing all this revolution. Initially, Arjuna thought that he is the one who is, I am the warrior, I am winning. Over a period of time, he was obliged to learn, compelled to learn that it is indeed not him, but this presence of this charioteer. Not even the charioteer doing, just the presence of the charioteer that is making things happen. This is the depiction of this, the beauty of the depiction of Mahabharata. The meaning of the word Arjuna is white in color or pure in nature. That is what Arjuna means. One who, the Jivatman who is pure in nature, is competent to know the Paramatman who is making things revolve and understand the quality of the purity of that Paramatman who is in the core, who is very much there in the core. And in the presence of that Paramatman, this Maya Shakti, the power, it assumes the power of action. So Bhagavan, when he says Mayaya, by his power, the universe revolves and makes all beings spin. See, ignorant people think that they themselves are the workers out of their own free will, that I am making things that I do, which is okay, by the way, for the material world. They entertain the notion of doing or not doing, because I do it with my will, I do not do it with my free will. There was this beautiful interpretation of free will that Rama shared. Maybe Rama, you should share with this group also. That was very nice. Okay, and free will is very important. Free will is very important. Why? Because this samsara is where we grow and evolve. But at some stage, we realize that we should not get increasingly entangled in this Maya. And it is this Maya of Bhagavan which is making everything happen. Where we get out of the samsara and into perfection and then to Bhagavan, into Bhagavan. One who thus changes the attitude and holds on to the conviction that I am not the doer but only an instrument in the hands of Ishvara, and it is his cosmic activity that is taking place through his will, that kind of a person attains supreme peace and the eternal good. So I've actually written here that story of the king and minister as time is available. Now, time is actually not available, but 5:10. Okay, I'll finish by 5:15. Okay, so I'll tell the story. It's a nice, I've shared the story earlier, but it's wonderful and it makes us understand this better. So there was this king and the minister who went out for hunting. And, you know, the king is very, very enthusiastically looking forward to the hunt. But time goes by and nothing is happening. There is no reward, there is no trophy. So the king is getting more and more disappointed and he keeps complaining to the minister. The minister says it's all the will of the Lord. Whatever happens, happens for the good. And the king is like, what nonsense. I mean, we are not getting our rule. Anyway, time passes, nothing is coming. And the weather starts getting bad, stormy, rainy. And the king is saying, what's going on? You know, it's getting so bad. And the minister says, it's all the will of the Lord. Everything happens, whatever happens, happens for the good. And the king's irritation is only growing. And then suddenly they find that they've completely lost their way. And now the king is angry. And he says, what is this? Don't you even know how to take us through the right way? You are the minister. And the minister repeats, it's all the will of the Lord. Whatever happens, happens for the good. And the king shouts at the minister, shut up now. And as he is shouting and is getting impatient and that destruction of the peace in his mind, he trips, the horse trips. He doesn't manage or control the horse well. And it trips and he falls. And the king breaks his finger completely. Finger comes out. And now the king is extremely, not only is he upset, angry, irritated, disappointed, he's also in pain. And what does the minister have to say? It's all the will of the Lord. Whatever happens, happens for the good. And the king is like, okay, can you at least find some water by the will of this Lord of yours? And they go around searching for water, they find a well. But that well is completely parched and dry with mucky, muddy water at the bottom, undrinkable. And the king is like, what is this? Where have you brought me? Again, the minister, it's all the will of the Lord. Whatever happens, happens for the good. The king has now had it. He curses the minister and pushes him into the well. Get lost. And as the minister is falling, he says, it is all the will of the Lord. Whatever happens, happens for the good. Now the king says, get lost, and he's going and on his own now. He's trying to find, but at least he says, thank God this irritating voice of the minister praising the so-called Lord is not there. And suddenly his people swoop down upon him and capture him. The king is an prisoner now. And he finds that he's the prisoner of cannibals. So the cannibals are people who eat people. And he is now a prisoner. And they've tied him up, performing all the rituals. And king is now, completely succumbed. What? Has taken refuge. Not Mata, Sarika, help me. Taking refuge, Sanskrit word. Vyapashritya, right? Mad Vyapashritya, not Mad, not Bhagavan. He has taken refuge in his fate. Arey, my karma, now I'm going to die. Okay? As that sword is coming to hit down, one of the cannibals shout, wait, stop. Our sacrifice is injured. It's spoiled. You cannot sacrifice. Why? Because that finger is broken. Set him free. So they set him free. And the king is now relieved that all that cursing, disappointment has given way to relief. And he says, oh my God, because of my broken finger, I saved, my life got saved today. And look, this is God. It's all his will. That's how it happened. See, the minister was right. And he is now realizing how right the minister was, and he starts searching for him. He has to find that well, into which he pushed the minister. He runs and he is able to find the well, and the minister is down there, helpless. Luckily, that rope with which the cannibals had tied him is still around the king's waist. He takes that rope out, pulls the minister out, and he says, oh my God, what you said was true. It is his will. And this is what happened. He relates the story of, getting captured, about to be killed, but this finger saved him. And then he asked the minister, for me, this is what happened. I understand why, I had to lose my finger. But what about you? You are this Bhakt of Lord. Why did you have to rot in that well, bitten by insects, bruised, hurt? The minister says, O king, if I had been with you, both of us would have been captured. Your finger was broken, but I was full. And the cannibals would have taken me as the sacrifice. I would have lost my life. And why is it that they had this experience? So that the king realizes the value of it. The minister is the most crucial. Today, Amit Shah is the most crucial for Narendra Modi, right? So king realizes the value of the minister, and they function as a team in future. So at the end of the day, it is all the will of the Lord. Whatever happens, happens for the good. So if there is this Lord within, and this is that power that rules over the world, makes the world spin, guides all activities, then what should we do? Let's everything. We are part of that spinning chakra, no? What should we do? And what would be the result of what we do in this spinning wheel? That we shall see in the next satsang. Hari Om Shri Krishna. Thank you.
We'll repeat today's verses. Chapter 18, 56 to 61. सर्वकर्माण्यपि सदा कुर्वाणो मद्व्यपाश्रयः मत्प्रसादात् अवाप्नोति शाश्वतं पदमव्ययम् चेतसा सर्वकर्माणि मयि सन्न्यस्य मत्परः बुद्धियोगः उपाश्रित्य मच्चित्तः सततं भव मच्चित्तः सर्वदुर्गाणि मत्प्रसादात् तरिष्यसि अत चेत्त्वमहङ्कारान् न श्रोष्यसि विनङ्क्ष्यसि यदहङ्कारमाश्रित्य न योत्स्य इति मन्यसि विद्यैष व्यवसायस्ते प्रकृतिस्त्वां नियोक्ष्यति स्वभावजेन कौन्तेय निबद्धस्वेन कर्मणा कर्तुं नेच्छसि यन्मोहात् करिष्यस्य वशोऽपि तत् ईश्वरः सर्वभूतानां हृद्देशेऽर्जुन तिष्ठति भ्रामयन् सर्वभूतानि यन्त्रारूढानि मायया ॐ असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ
Hari Om. Thank you. Any thoughts, comments, questions?
Yeah, I do have. If somebody else wants to ask, or can I?
Yes, yes, Rama.
Yeah, I want to know by what you say that there is no place for any free will, because what I understand is there is some space within which we can act. Like when we did some earlier classes, I remember we said there are two birds. One is the Paramatma, one is the Jivatma. Paramatma just keeps watching silently, and the Jivatma does what it wants. And like, supposing I say what is to happen will happen and jump into the well, somebody will come and save me. That is something illogical. I mean, I don't know if the God controls it, or if I don't study for the exam and go and write the exam, jo hona hai ho jayega. You know, doesn't our free will take? I mean, don't we have a place for a free will at that point of time?
Exactly. So see, the two things here. So one part of it, of course, there is place for free will, and free will is, it's a beautiful gift that the human being has. A lot of other creatures don't have free will. Free will comes from the intellect, which the human being has a lot of, right? So of course there is place. The first place for free will is for material achievements, and material achievements are very important for evolution of a human being. That apart, with the free will subjugating one's ego and being subservient to the will of the God is spiritual growth. That also free will comes under play there. Willingly, willfully understanding with the jnana of the power of the Supreme, that power of that will of the Supreme, which is making everything revolve. With that, subjugating one's ego and submitting to Bhagwan can also be done through free will. So in both ways, I would say, yes, free will is important. I said in fact, today's satsang, I finished by saying, so what should one do? So if Bhagwan is doing everything, that we'll talk in the next satsang. But even till now, Bhagwan has given guidance in terms of what should one do. And ultimately, that is what it will come to again. One should, and I did answer that in this session and previously also, right? Which is what? Which is Ishvara Arpana Buddhi, Prasada Buddhi. With the free will, one can do that. So yes, human free will is a very valid and relevant aspect, required aspect. But if with that free will we ignore God's will, that is where humanity's problems. In spite of, when you say, science has progressed so much, why is still there unhappiness? Why is still there so much of chaos in this planet? In fact, it's increasing. Chaos is increasing, the life of Earth is reducing, habitation has become a problem. All that is happening, right? That is because human beings have subjugated God's will and made free will bigger than that. That is where the problem is.
Can we say the Lord, we have a free will, but the Lord knows how we are going to use that free will? Is he aware that how we are going to use that free will?
He knows, he is aware, he is witnessing. And that is where what you referred to in one of our previous satsang, we took the story of Uddhava Gita, where Uddhava says, why did you silently watch Pandavas losing, the battle? Not the battle, the dice, the gambling game, right? He asked Krishna, right? Why did you silently, you are silently watching. So why is Bhagwan silent in those situations? That's a different story anyway. But yeah, so God is there, he is watching all the time. That is true. Yes. That was your question, right?
Yeah, that was. Thank you.
Hi, Srini.
Hey, Petra.
Hi. I like how you explain the devotion. And for me, the most beautiful explanation of devotion is, I don't know if it has already been said here, how Hanuman explained his true nature when he was asked about his true nature. And as he said that if I forget who I am, I serve you. And if I remember who I am you. This is for me the most beautiful explanation of bhakti.
If I forget who I am,
I serve you.
can you say that again?
If I forget
Yes,
who
sir.
I am, or when I forgot who I am, I serve you, and when I remember who I am you.
Very nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay, if there are no other thoughts, comments, or questions, thank you. Hari Om. We will meet next Saturday. Yep, so we are now almost towards the end of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 or 4 satsang. I think between 2 and 3 is what I'm thinking. Thank you all. Hari Om.